The Witch's Wrath by Charles Swain. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who loved each other very much. The townspeople could not ask for better royalty, and every year raises were given to the workers. Music and dancing was quite regular. The folk would eat heartily and dance and play in merriment. When someone had nowhere to stay, the king would offer them a place in the castle for the night. In their kingdom was a vast garden, which the queen visited frequently. It was her favorite place to go in all the land, and every year she expanded it by having the king go out into the woods and bring more flowers. The queen soon discovered that she was with child, and when the king found out, he was joyous and thought it only fitting of a festival to be deemed worthy of such a momentous occasion. The very next day, the king went into the forest on his normal routine of getting flowers for his wife, but this time he did not come back. The queen ordered a search when she grew worrisome, but it was to no avail. As much as the soldiers explored, they found no traces of their king. The queen's heart grew heavy as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. She would not smile again until the day she conceived. She was beside herself, for she had not one, but 2 children. "To my beautiful daughters, I will make sure no harm falls upon you. On this you have my word," said she. It wasn't long after that the queen decided to name the girls Scarlet and Ivory. When the queen was healthy enough to walk about, she would take her daughters to the garden as well. When the girls were a little older, they would gather around the fireplace, and the queen would tell them stories. One particular night, she told them a story about their father. The queen continued on to tell Scarlet and Ivory how he once vanquished a dark and menacing wizard that had cursed a town. "How did he get close enough to slay the wizard? Are wizards not powerful?" the girls would ask. The mother let out a content smile. "They are powerful, but your father was too clever for his magic." And the wizard did not know that the king had with him a seal that reflected magic. Ivy looked up at her mother questioningly. "But what of the seal? What did he do with it?" The queen got out a small box. When she opened it, 2 pendants were inside. "The night before your father vanished, he made the seal into these." Scarlet and Ivory were in awe, their eyes beaming. It was clear they wanted the pendants. The queen wondered if it was too soon to give her daughters such a treasure, but they had always proven to be responsible in the past. "If I let you each have one, you have to promise to not let the pendants out of your sight. You must keep it with you, always." Both Scarlet and Ivory nodded, and they made sure to take good care of such a relic. From this day on, they never left their chambers without it. As the years passed, it turned out the daughters shared a great many things in common. They both had a great love for animals, so the queen made certain that they both received 2 doves. When that wasn't enough to make them happy, she got a few lambs that were allowed into the castle. To teach her young responsibility, she told both her daughters that they could only have as many pets as they were able to care for. Despite Scarlet and Ivory getting over a dozen animals, their rooms were always kept neat, and they worked hard grooming and making sure the pets never acted poorly. Eventually, Scarlet had a great fascination for wanting to venture into the woods. Neither child had even seen what lies out beyond the kingdom wall. Every time Scarlet looked up at the sky, she would think to herself how wonderful it would be to see the new world, or at least one that was new to her. She would talk to Ivory about it, and the more Ivory listened, the more she wanted to go out into the forest as well. One day the daughters confronted their mother about it, but the queen was not happy about this. Out there is nothing like the world you are used to. Here, you can be happy and content. Out there, many creatures wait. Many creatures hunger and eat and pry away human flesh, said she to her daughters. It was an attempt to try and silence the curiosities both Scarlet and Ivory had, an attempt that would be futile. Townfolk and soldiers leave the kingdom plenty of times, Scarlet would point out. Heed my words, cried the Queen. The world is not as merry as you may think. People come to and fro in town because they are traders. They have to make a living. As far as knights, it is a noble title, but the battles they must endure are not. They go to a place where rivers of crimson stretch for miles. These nobles, they have to look into the eyes of someone's uncle, someone's father, someone's son, knowing full well that who they kill will never see their loved ones again. The walls covered in red, reminding them of how many lives were taken and what tragedies had to befall in order to achieve victory. It comes at a price where part of their soul will be forever tainted, and screams that will never quiet in their minds. That is the reality. Out there is death. Out there is despair. And out there is true terror. The Queen had hopes that by going into such detail that her daughters would no longer pursue the argument. This only made the daughters all the more eager. How are we to prepare ourselves from such a world if we don't at least experience it? Surely, if you could make it through, you can trust your daughters to do the same, Ivory replied. The Queen was not used to her children refuting her when she gave a demand. It was the first time that Ivory and Scarlet rebelled, and the Queen was not quite sure how to handle it. At least grant me this, she said. For now, you stay within the kingdom walls, and you speak nothing more about the land outside. If by your 16th birthday you wish to still venture out, you will have my blessing. When the mother spoke those words, the daughters said nothing more. They went about their work each day and were content about it. It so happened that one night in the winter, a knock came from Ivory's chamber door. When she didn't answer, there was another knock, and this time it woke Ivory up. Thinking it could be her sister, Ivory opened the door. A look of terror was placed upon Ivory, for there, standing in the doorway, was a black wolf. Its eyes were bloodshot, and before it could even step one foot in her chamber, Ivory slammed the door in panic. Her heart raced, and her arms stayed frozen to the door, but she dare not budge. For if the wolf was hungry and full of ill will, it could very well chomp at her bones, along with the other animals within the chamber. Ivory, are you in there? Let me in. Ivory knew that voice. It was her sister. She could not just leave Scarlet out to be eaten by the wolf, so she opened the door and told her quickly to get in. But Scarlet was not in a rush. She walked in at her own pace and brought the wolf inside. Before Ivory let out a blood-curdling scream, her sister would quickly comfort. Worry not, dear sister. This wolf means us no harm. He is not evil, nor is he hungry, but he is badly wounded. On a closer glance, Ivory would see that the wolf had gotten into a horrible scuffle. It must have been something ferocious, by what marks and cuts she could see on the wolf. The Queen walked into the chamber as well to see what the commotion was about. She thought to rush her daughters out of the room, but one look from the wolf showed such sorrow and sadness that she knew it was not intent on doing them harm. As she noticed its injuries, she would get some yarrow, which she made into an herb to treat the wolf. The wolf still had a fair amount of snow on him as the sisters brushed it off, and had the wolf lay by the fireplace. Make sure he does not sit too close. We do not want the wolf to burn his lovely fur coat, said the mother. When the wolf had recovered, it walked around the kingdom with Ivory and Scarlet, and although wolves normally had an instinct to eat many of the animals the sisters had, he somehow knew not to feast on any of the ones in the castle. Every day, the sisters would spend time with the wolf and even play. One evening, the wolf decided to talk. "When the winter is over and all the snow has melted, I will be leaving." Ivory and Scarlet looked troubled, as the wolf was now part of the family. "Why must you go?" questioned Ivory. To this, the wolf responded with a heavy heart, and its snout resting on its paw. "Each spring, an evil witch roams my village and steals all the valuables she can find. People of town bury their treasures in the ground in the wintertime to keep the witch away from it." Confused, Scarlet asked, "How would that keep the witch away?" "In the winter, it always snows in my village, and when it does, it creates a layer of frozen water over the ground. The witch will not dare come after the treasures in the winter, as this particular witch has a weakness to water." While the wolf spoke, Ivory and Scarlet scratched behind his ears and his tail would wag. "You living in a village certainly would explain why you are so tame. Do you have owners that care for you?" said Ivory. To this question the wolf did not answer, but only laid his head back down. Ivory knew not why the wolf ignored this particular question, nor did Scarlet. The sisters decided not to persist on it, and instead would just pet the wolf and talk about stories of their past. "You are lucky. Our mother was there the day Scarlet found you in the forest. She knows a lot about plants and healing. She said to me once that I should spend my time reading and educating myself. Truth be told, I find reading to be quite boring. I never found anything useful in a book. I would rather see the wonderments of nature than read the workings of someone that died 200 years ago. The only thing for me to feel sorrowful for is that Mother made sure an entire library was created in the kingdom in hopes that Scarlet and me would use it one day." As Ivory's hands moved through the wolf's fur coat, she looked down at his hues and noticed his right eye had not fully healed yet. From the time Scarlet brought the wolf to their home up until now, each eye on the wolf was a different color. The right eye was green, while the other was blue. "It has been nearly a month. I do not think your eye is going to get any better," said Ivory. "It has been a lot longer than a month. I have been blind in my right eye since I was brought into this world," responded the wolf. Before long, it was time for the wolf to set out back to his village, and both of the sisters pleaded with the queen to let them go with him. "You will not so easily have things your own way," said the queen to her daughters. "Did you forget what I said before? On your 16th birthday, you may both visit the wolf at his village, and not a moment sooner." Though the daughters thought the queen was unfair, they still would abide by her words. Before the wolf left, he gave a map to Scarlet and Ivory. It was a map that led from the castle all the way to his village. "It's a far walk, but I know you will make it. I see the queen's strength in both of you." And with that, Scarlet and Ivory watched the wolf until it could no longer be seen from the castle. Months have passed since then, and it came to pass that Ivory and Scarlet's birthday arrived. They were allowed to leave the castle. Before they set off for adventure, the mother packed them with a supply of food. The map the wolf handed to them, and even a knife, just in case they needed it. Ivory and Scarlet both knew that if they did not leave at once, their mother would try to keep them there as long as possible. They walked out of the castle while it was still bright and early, and were able to admire the forest all around them. It wasn't long before the castle was out of sight, and they had their chance to see lakes and beautiful mountains for the first time in their lives. They stopped a few times to admire their surroundings, climbing up trees and rolling over the ground. Scarlet and Ivory continued on their journey, then saw something unnerving. It was a witch. She had long fingernails that traveled all the way to the ground. Her nails had gotten tangled badly on some vines. These plants were poisonous ones, and the more the witch pulled, the more her fingernails got entwined in them. She looked to Scarlet and Ivory, and as she did, she would shout, "Do not just stand there like a bunch of self-rutting miscreants. You can see my nails caught up in these vines. Do something." Scarlet retrieved the knife from the pouch and in one swipe, cut the witch free. This made the witch furious, as now her nails only reached to her knees. She had a long and cold stare on her face, her eyes more red than an iron poker in a fireplace. "A curse on you," said the witch. "My beautiful nails. Why did you not just cut the vines?" she screeched. Scarlet was fearful, just by the witch's presence and tone towards her. Still, she tried her best to answer. "The vines were so tangled in the fingernails. Did you wish for me to risk my own life by getting infected by the poison?" The witch's hair blew to the side as she slowly extended her hand out. "You uncouth morons. I will see you burn from the crown of your head to the sole of your foot." At this point, both of the sisters were most frightened. No one had ever talked to them in such a way before. The apology they gave only fell on deaf ears, for the witch would hear none of it. Flames rose out from the witch's hand. "Your pain will be legendary, and just when you think it is over, and you feel the angels ascend you towards the heavens, you will fall onto the world again and experience a torture never-ending." And with those words, the witch cast the flames towards Scarlet and Ivory. The sisters felt their end approaching, and a glimpse of what evil in pure form really was. But their lives did not end this day, for when the witch summoned the fire over, it turned back and enveloped her body instead. The intense heat and scorching flames burned deep into the flesh, and a thunderous scream was heard. At first, the sisters thought that the witch had perished, but she would not die so easily. The flames eventually ceased, and the wounds on the witch healed in front of them. They thought to run away, but were too frightened to move. The witch looked up, slowly standing upright. "I underestimated your power. Because of this, I will let you go this time, but do not get in my way again." After she said this, the witch walked behind a rock. She had a big pouch that she hoisted over her shoulders, then was soon out of Scarlet and Ivory's sight. Neither of them knew what just happened or how they survived the encounter of the flames. Ivory then remembered the pendant their mother had given to her and to Scarlet when they were very young. It was still around Ivory's neck, as she and her sister wore it every day. Mother told us once that some pendants can reflect magic. You do not think she could be right, do you? To this Scarlet responded, "I just saw flames come from an old woman's hand. I am willing to believe anything right now." They thought to just go back home after the events that had unfolded, since they had wasted a lot of time after the scuffle with the witch. But then they remembered their dearest friend and wished to see him so much that they pressed on. As the sisters traveled deeper into the woods, they heard yelling and cursing in the distance. As they followed the sound, they saw the witch yet again trapped. This time, she had gotten her fingernails caught in a giant spider web. The web had been spun around 2 large trees, and at the very top of the web was a large black widow spider. It was at least twice the size of the witch, and it slowly started climbing down. The witch only got herself more entwined in the silk. "I cannot do anything tangled up like this. Why do you imbeciles not make yourselves useful and do something right for a change?" As the witch insulted the girls, the spider carried on with its descent. Ivory thought to just walk away, but Scarlet would pull out the knife their mother had given them. "You cannot really be considering to help the witch. She nearly killed us the last time." With a shrug, Scarlet looked to Ivory and said, "Dear sister, can you walk away without a guilty conscience if we stand idly by and do nothing?" Ivory let the conversation end there, for she knew her sister was right. Scarlet took the knife, cut the witch's fingernails in one swipe, just like before. But the witch gave them a stare even more terrifying than before. Her eyes alone gave off the presence of pure evil. "Before I let you decide which of you dies first, I'm going to ask why you did such a foolish thing. Why did you cut my nails when you could have just as easily cut the webbing around them?" To this Scarlet answered, "If I had tried to go for the silk, I might have gotten stuck just as you did. Do you think me mad? It was far more practical to just cut a small bit of your nails off. I am sure over time they will grow back." The veins that would run all along the witch's forehead seemed as red as the lava which flowed from an angry volcano. "No, I do not think you mad. Do you think me wicked? I will dine in your flesh tonight," she said to the sisters. The witch, upon saying this, would cast a bolt of lightning from the sky, but instead of hitting Scarlet and Ivory, she made sure it would hit the spider. The bolt was so strong that the spider's body split in half and its blood drained onto the ground. The witch had let her anger cloud her mind, for she was in such haste. She overlooked that this spider's blood was like acid. Some of the blood from the lightning strike spattered over the witch, her arms and face being eaten away. What really affected the witch, however, more than the burns, was the poison. Ivory and Scarlet took this opportunity to run, and as they did, they could hear the witch shout, "I will not rest until I kill you miserable creatures." When they were out of the witch's sight, both of the sisters stopped to catch their breath. "Dear sister, promise me that if that witch should be in peril again, you will make no attempt to help her," said Ivory. But she did not get the answer she hoped for. Scarlet thought for a moment or two, and then responded, "I cannot make such a promise. For if I do nothing, then I am no better than she." As troubled as Ivory was, she knew that her sister was right. The sisters walked a ways more, and before long they came to a village. It was nothing fancy like what they had at home. These homes were not made of stone. The people here did not dress quite so eloquently, and some looked as if they might not have had homes at all. Some looked ill. Some looked like they had not eaten anything in weeks. Before either of the sisters could utter a word, they heard a voice. "It's been a long time." The sisters quickly turned around and saw their friend. They knew it was him instantly, as this wolf had one green eye and one blue eye. They all laughed and played and talked merrily just as before. But when nightfall approached, and everyone was sitting around the fire, the sisters told the wolf all about the witch they encountered. "This might be the same witch that stole all the treasures from the village. All of the snow has melted away, and now we fear she will come back. We used to be prosperous, nothing fancy, but at least we could get by without wondering if we were going to be able to eat that day. If it was not for the witch, we would not be sick, dying, starving, or fearful." As the wolf spoke, he laid down next to Ivory and Scarlet, and they pet his fur coat. "Why do you not just scare the witch away? Frighten her so badly that she will never come back," said Ivory. The wolf looked up and shook his head. "Witches are fearless creatures, especially when they are in rage. Scarlet, Ivory, listen to me carefully. If a witch is truly vexed, she must be destroyed. Kill her before she kills you." "And how does one kill a witch?" asked Scarlet. But the wolf did not know the answer to that question, for he had never killed one before. "Did you not say water could kill a witch?" Ivory inquired. "No," said the wolf. "I said it was a weakness. It is a means to slow her down, not to kill her. If you plan to throw water at her, you better run, for she will have no mercy if she catches you." Just as the wolf had spoken, a loud noise was heard in the distance. The sisters hurried to see what the commotion was about. It was the same witch they had encountered twice before. She was stuck and could not move, and her nails were wedged down under a boulder. A dragon stood before her, its mouth gaping open. A few men from the village had followed Ivory and Scarlet and launched an attack. More than 20 arrows hurled through the air, but to no avail. Dragon scales were at least 10 times stronger than Diamond. The arrows just bounced off, and all hope looked lost on saving the witch. That is, until one such arrow moved through the air and pierced straight through the dragon's right eye. Ivory, Scarlet, and even a soldier tried to push the boulder, but it was much too heavy. Scarlet took out the knife and in one swipe cut the witch's nails once more. This time, they were so short that the witch could curl her nails into her palms. Before any reaction could come from the witch, the dragon's jaws opened and ate her in one bite. If the witch had not been so powerful and carried the same weakness as a human, this would be where the story ends. This would not be a battle the dragon could claim victory to, for soon the beast stood still and could not move. Ice encased the creature completely, and when the body fell over, it shattered like a piece of glass that had been hit by a thunderbolt. The witch was there, staring at the sisters with nothing but death in mind. Her blood had boiled to the point that it could cook a normal human alive. "You damnable children!" shouted the witch. She felt such morbid and utter hate that the pain of the nails piercing through her skin. When she clutched, her fist was absent. "You damnable children!" The tone was in such a way that the ground under the soldiers' feet shook. Never had they been so afraid, and never would they be again. "So, you are immune to magic of the elemental kind. We will see how you fare against 1,000 spears," said the witch. Her gaze did not alter. She only raised a single hand toward the sky, and spears collided into many of the townspeople. The town was in panic, and many of its inhabitants ran away, while many others were killed instantly from the impaling sharp metal. Death had now visited this town, the life force leaving the witch's victims, and a trail of burgundy soon surrounded it. By now, the sisters were hiding behind a big oak tree, staying out of view from the witch. They were trembling in fear, knowing their end could arrive at any moment. The wolf spotted the sisters and ran up to them. "You are as good as dead if you stay here." To this, Scarlet responded, "I'm sorry, friend. If it wasn't for us, your town would not be in danger." The wolf then shouted, "This witch is a merciless creature. This was bound to happen eventually. Right now is not the time to be sorrowful. Do you know of anyone who has a chance of stopping her?" Scarlet thought for a few moments and then responded, "The only person I can think of that might have any idea is Mother. As long as I can remember, she had an answer for everything." "Then go seek her out now, for the witch is in a wrath, and she will not stop until everything in her path is destroyed." Ivory, while listening, was writing a small letter. A bird flew by, and she signaled the bird to come closer. It landed on Ivory's arm. She rolled up the paper and then attached it to the bird's leg. "Go to the castle with great haste. You can probably get there a lot faster than me and my sister can. Go seek out the queen and show her this note." The bird nodded in understanding, and then took off in flight. When it soared off into the sky, the wolf had Scarlet and Ivory follow him. He led the sisters to a horse. "You can get home much faster this way. Do not let the destruction of our town be in vain." The sisters got on the horse, and as soon as they did, it took off. But the witch had already caught them in her sights. she turned into a giant vulture and gave chase. The sisters could hear the witch's voice while she soared in the air with murder on her mind. "Do not think you can escape your fate. I will break down Hell's Gate and drag you out if I have to." The speed of the vulture increased, and Scarlet and Ivory fought hard to hold back their tears. With hearts racing, they knew mortal terror was approaching. Meanwhile, the bird the sisters had sent earlier had arrived at the castle with Ivory's letter. It flew down next to the scroll the queen was writing out. She thought to just shoo the bird away, but saw something attached to its leg. Curious, she took out the paper and unraveled it. After reading the note, the queen turned frantic. She grew pale and tried composing herself, unsure of what to do first. She got out a vase and put some broken glass inside. She walked to the town square and asked the blacksmith if he had any rusty bolts and nails she could use. He was confused, but gave her what she asked for, about a handful of them. She stormed about the square and picked up a few other items, then informed the soldiers of what was going on and to lower the bridge. She said once Scarlet and Ivory were inside the castle, they could raise it. While the soldiers readied for battle, the queen marched into her chambers and slammed the door shut. She put a portion of the rusty nails into the vase, then retrieved a dagger and slowly cut it into her own arm. Blood trickled down into the vase, and when she was content with the amount, she sealed the vase and tended to her wound. Then the queen punctured a hole at the top that would only be big enough for a thread to go through. She brought over some candles and removed the wicks from them. She then proceeded to fuse the wicks together and slid it into the hole at the top of the vase. The queen then coated the remaining nails with lavender oil and struck them through the outside of her own chamber door. She poured salt down the stairs. The queen did all she could to get ready. A soldier saw a horse approaching. He aimed the bow, but then saw Scarlet and Ivory on top and quickly lowered his guard. After they stormed through, the soldiers raised the bridge. The vulture rose up over the castle, but the soldiers were ready. They fired the arrows, and the giant bird was impaled with a great many of them. Surrounding the kingdom was a large body of water, and the vulture let out one loud screech and fell into it. The witch's voice was so deafening, they could hear her voice even from under the water. "When I find you, I will drink the marrow from your bones." The water looked as if it was boiling, and then, to their horrified amazement, a bear emerged out of the water. Ruby streams of red poured down from its fangs and eyes, as if it was injured. No matter how many arrows penetrated the beast, it seemed useless. It did not slow down the bear one bit. It leapt into the air and broke through the bridge completely. When the soldiers came near it, the bear clawed furiously, with one man being torn into 3 pieces. One of the warriors was driven mad just by looking into the beast's eyes. He yelled out in horrific pain as his skin separated from his bones. Only his skeletal figure remaining. His eyes were now glowing a deep red. He had been cursed by the witch and was now attacking the people he once knew as comrades. Before long, all of the witch's enemies were vanquished. That is, all but 2 of them. In all of this time, the queen had confined Scarlet and Ivory to their chambers, telling them not to come out. The bear stormed the kingdom halls in search of them. Then the queen appeared and spoke to the creature. "You will terrorize us no longer. Leave this place. You shall not have my daughters." The bear turned around very slowly, its black fur blending into the shadows of the night. Its teeth were so sharp, they might as well have been obsidian swords. As frightened as the queen was, she was more frightened of the beast finding her children. The bear finally spoke. "Dear Queen, you are all out of warriors. All that is left is to reap unspeakable harm upon those that wronged me. Tell me where they are, and tell me now, or I will eat your heart where you stand." The bear turned its head slowly, staring into a portrait of the old king. The painting resembled the king remarkably well, and the witch soon recognized who this was. "That man I killed so many years ago was your husband?" The queen shook frantically. She was on the verge of tears, but the bear just grinned even more wickedly. "Oh, yes. He did not dress the part of a king that day, though. I had no idea he was a part of royalty. If I did, I would have prolonged his torture. You see, he trespassed into my territory. He said he was just looking for some flowers to give to his wife. You should be honored. I am going to kill you in the same manner as I did your husband. I turned into a bear and mauled him to death, just like I am about to do to you." Little did the witch know that behind the queen's hand was the vase that she prepared earlier. It was lit, and she was only trying to bide enough time for the wick to burn down to the near bottom. With a target as big as a bear, she knew she surely would not miss. She threw the vase and then ran behind a nearby wall. On impact, the vase exploded with the bolts, nails, and shrapnel cut into the creature. The bear burst into flames. The witch lost her hold on the transformation and turned back into her hideous form. The flames vanished, but the damage was already done. She found herself unable to change back. However, she was still able to heal her wounds and looked up. "You used a witch bottle on me. I do not know how you know of such things, but I will make you scream until the turn of the century when I get a hold of you," she shrieked. The queen was still hiding behind a wall. She got up and made a quick dash up the stairs and to her chambers. Upon entering the safety of the room, she was shocked to see Scarlet and Ivory there. "I told you to stay in your rooms," the queen shouted. "We wanted to help. We cannot just sit by and do nothing after all this," said Ivory. The witch placed her foot on the first step and yelled out violently. With the steps covered in salt, her foot practically melted into the stairs. By this point, she didn't care. She tore her skin off and kept climbing. The sisters could hear the witch slowly getting closer with each step. "If she is willing to endure that much pain, then what is she willing to do to us?" Ivory asked. The witch took another painstaking step, then another, then another. The salt eating away at her body as streams of red spiraled down the stairs. The loud yells from the witch stopped, and the sisters wondered if the witch had died. Just as they questioned to open the door, they heard a loud knock. Then they realized that wasn't a knock at all. The witch was chopping down the door with an axe. "I'm going to enjoy killing all of you slowly. I will let you decide amongst yourselves who I chop up first," bellowed the witch. The queen looked to Ivory and Scarlet and told both of them to back away. Then the queen did something most unexpected. She opened the door for the witch. The witch stepped inside and closed the door, trapping the three women with nowhere to go. "You get to suffer the same pain you put me through, and much more." The irises in the witch's eyes glowed like hot iron. The queen had a rope in her hand, and when she pulled it, the hinges from the door removed. To the queen's dismay, the door still did not fall down like she had expected. But before the witch could even take another step, something from the other side launched into the door and caused it to topple over her. A smile rose on Scarlet's and Ivory's faces, for it was their wolf friend. The door had nails that pierced into the witch's back, and as the nails were coated in lavender, the witch had lost all of her power and was now mortal. "Scarlet, Ivory, leave the room at once." The queen had a look of such seriousness that the daughters did not dare talk back, and left in haste. The queen had the wolf keep an eye on the witch while she went to get a bow and arrow. She aimed the bow carefully, and it was by this time the witch finally spoke up. "Wait! You do not want to kill me. What good would that do you? If you spare me, I will give back all the treasures I stole. My powers will eventually return to me, and then I can bring everyone back to life, including your husband. Kill the wolf instead. While there is incentive to keep me alive, he is completely useless." Pulling the arrow back, the queen responded, "A deal with the likes of you is the same as a deal with a demon. My answer will come in the form of releasing you from this world." And as the queen let go of the arrow, the witch let out one last horrific screech and lay lifeless. She did not move again. Scarlet and Ivory came back to the room to see what happened. And upon the witch's death, the wolf's coat fell completely, and under it was a man. "Is that really you?" said Scarlet, astonished at who she was seeing. The man smiled and told them everything. "Many years ago, the witch cast her dark magic and turned me into a wolf to set an example to the other villagers. The happiness did not end there, for when the witch died, everyone that suffered by her wrath was alive and well again, even the king that had once fallen to the hands of the witch so many years ago. When he appeared before the queen, she could not even speak. There were many talks that night, and the queen explained everything that he missed. All the while, all the treasure that was taken by the witch was returned to the village. Scarlet later married the man that once wore the wolf coat, and he was now a prince within the kingdom. As for Ivory's prince, that is another tale for another time. One day, the prince visited the queen at the garden. "You surely do love your garden," said the prince. "I do. And if you can keep a secret, I will tell you something else. That is where my daughters' names come from, for they are as beautiful as the flowers. Each day, I would place 2 roses by their window, a scarlet rose and an ivory rose.